All right, Dove and Myrna, this mic is all yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Dove. How art thou? Romeo, where are you? You're muted.
Thou art wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, good. That's great.
And since you were here for some time listening to Regis,
Yeah, yes, yes.
it's
But
off.
Regis is wonderful. When I say wonderful, what he does is he really sets the pace. I love following him because he has such a way of putting you at rest, at peace, making you feel calm. Because he just kind of speaks from the heart. He just tells it like it is. And, he does live the Course in Miracles, whether he knows it or not. He really does, just by the way he speaks. And so I thank him for that. How was your week? I haven't.
It's good. I was listening to Regis too. I like the part where he was saying, someone says, can you help out? No, poor me. No, no, no. There's no poor me. You are either the abundant Son of God, certain that you have everything, and you don't say, "Poor me, I'm just getting by." I do love that, and he pointed out also the reading that we did yesterday at the Justice of God, where it says God creates His masterpiece and puts it in this eternal frame, whereas we put it into our frame in time. Well, I got this frame called the body, and I was born, I live, I die. So his masterpiece lives forever in the mind of God, and we are his masterpiece. So I just want to kind of go back there because I never saw that before, that particular section talking about how God creates a masterpiece and puts it in the frame of the eternal. He doesn't know about time. The only thing that knows anything about time is the ego. The ego says, "Well, you were born, you're gonna live, and you're gonna die." And that's the frame that we live in, a frame of limitation, whereas the mind of God is unlimited. There's nothing outside of the mind of God, out of the one-mindedness of the peace and the love and the light and the truth. There's only one truth. It can't be two truths, and only the truth is true, and nothing else is true. So that's why I wanted to thank Regis for his sharing earlier. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
Yes, what came to mind when you said that we are in the framework of God's masterpiece. That's why God wants us all home, because a masterpiece is not complete if any of its parts are missing. So it only tells me I see the big, beautiful picture when we are all as one, when we think as one, when we join that beautiful masterpiece that we belong to. And that takes willingness, it takes desire, and it takes trust. I trust that I am protected. I really do trust. A new you, a new me, has been created in my own book here, my own book, the one that I speak of, Private Lessons with Jesus from A Course in Miracles, the book that I asked Jesus to help me with, and we did the lessons together. Today's lesson, I can escape the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. I'm going to read from that. The material world is made manifest by your thoughts. Everything you see is a reflection of the thoughts you choose to accept into your world. You have become well versed on how your thoughts make real the world you see. Your eyes have been opened to a new you. I just said that, a new me. My eyes have been opened to a new me. We're constantly reinventing ourselves, aren't we? We're not the same that we were when we were children, young adults. I find in looking at the path that I've traveled that my road has really been one of growth, even though it didn't appear to be, even though it didn't seem that I was going in the right direction. But in looking back and looking at the big picture, seeing that, yes, of course, it's a new me. The reason I say that is because I don't have the fears that I had, feeling I'm alone, desolate, locked out of the gates of heaven. Through the Course in Miracles, through the years of study and recognizing who I really am, has caused me to become, yes, trusting, more at peace, relying on the beauty of the advantage that I have, knowing that I'm in God's grace, in God's world, within God's love. And these are not just words; these are truths. These really are. When we recognize that there's nothing out there, really, today's lesson certainly depicts that. I can escape the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The attack thoughts that come to us seem to be just random. We don't always realize that the attack thoughts that we have, that we're bringing on. We think that, and the ego really has its way with us that way. It just seems to, come and go. The ego, the attack thoughts that the ego relies on really projecting, is not the, it seems to come and go with impunity. Let's put it that way. The ego comes and goes with impunity. We have control over that. We have control over our attack thoughts. And I realize that more and more every day, because when an attack thought should come to me, I've gotten into the habit of erasing it, of going to God and asking for a different way of looking at something, recognizing that I just had an attack thought, even though it seems to be inconsequential. But an attack thought is an attack thought, and nothing is inconsequential. It all takes away the peace of who we are, the peace that we are given to feel, the peace that we can feel, because just for the asking, as Regis said, we forget to ask. So the attack thoughts that are in today's, making it a point to tell us that we are experiencing attack thoughts, and we're changing the world by accepting the fact that we don't have to adhere to those attack thoughts. We can change our thoughts about the world, and therefore the world changes. In the Course in Miracles, it says, you see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. Well, we are the effect, really, and also the cause, really, because the effect that we project, it becomes the outcome is the cause. So whatever we think really does become the cause of the effect. Cause and effect, I guess that's what the term means, really. So the image maker, our thoughts are the image that we make. And the last thing I read here was from my book, is your eyes have been opened to a new you. Before you undertook the practice of giving up attack, you walked a dismal road. It was only then you sought to focus your thoughts differently, for pain is a stern teacher. Well, certainly we can all regard that. Pain is a stern teacher. When we've had enough of it, then we want to go away from pain, and we grasp at whatever we can. Sometimes we're grasping more of the ego. But I learned, thank God, years ago to look for God when that happened, when it became too much for me to bear. And so again, pain, yes, is a stern teacher, because nobody wants to keep feeling pain. Pain is relentless. By learning to love yourself, you first had to change your thoughts about yourself, your brothers and sisters, and the world. By pivoting your thoughts into a far better reality, you experienced healing. And I said that before. The healing that I experienced came from the thoughts that I was not entertaining, the ego thoughts that caused me so much pain. Pain from the past that doesn't exist. Well, we've talked about that too. With God's help, you were able to do the necessary work required to heal. Hateful thoughts bring on attack, and sadly, you attack no one but yourself. And that is so true, because when I have an attack thought, I'll reach out to God and say, I just had an attack thought, didn't I? I just attacked myself. Any attack thought makes me now recognize that it's really myself that I'm attacking. Who am I attacking? The thought is within me. So if I'm feeling the effects of that thought that is not that is painful, then of course it's myself that I'm attacking. And that's what we need to the practice to get away from that. It takes practice, it takes willingness, it takes trust, knowing that we're pleasing God when we are asking. We forget to ask, as Regis said, but when we're asking for the help that we need, that we do have God's gratitude. Such feelings invariably fan the fire, keeping fearful thoughts alive and well. Attack thoughts lock you into feelings of hopelessness, for there is no hope where hate prevails. Yes, there is no hope where hate prevails. Your thoughts create the world you see, and also how you see yourself. To escape from such a sorry state requires practice and willingness. Escape, then, is not only possible, but inevitable. And every word here is true, because I've experienced that. I've experienced the peace of God within that idea of letting go of attack, and creating only love and peace within the thoughts of how I want to extend myself. So I turn it over to you, Doug.
Okay, Myrna, that was powerful sharing. Thank you so much. Kind of went deep on this idea of our attack thoughts. Yeah, I was looking at Ken Wapnick's commentary, and it's a very long commentary. And thanks to Lynn, she posted it on ACIM Gather for A Course in Miracles, and so did Prudence. Prudence kind of alerted me to it in her morning commentary when she's on in the morning, playing Ken Wapnick. He actually starts off by saying, I put up in the chat, he says, this is among the most important lessons in the workbook. He doesn't say that often. In fact, he doesn't even say that for his favorite lesson. I'm never upset for the reason I think. Actually, that lesson and this lesson is really saying the exact same thing. Our attack thoughts, it's not that Dove thinks he attacks anybody, but he clarified and said, no, attack thoughts are really your thoughts where you don't love somebody, where you dislike somebody, where you and let's use the word hate, where you hate something or hate somebody. Those are your attack thoughts. So whenever I am in the mindset of a lack of love, and a lack of love can only come from that part of our mind that has no idea what love is, because that's who we are. We are love. And if I'm living in the part of my mind that doesn't know what love is, I must feel that I'm separate and apart from others. So I see the separation. And the only sin that the Course ever talks about is the belief, the lie in the belief in separation, that my brother's over there and I'm over here, and I don't care for him, I really care for me, and I want to win. I don't care if he loses. I want to live. I don't care if he dies. So it's always a competition. It's always a comparison. And it's never the equality of the mind of God, that where he gives everything equally. And he says, listen, your only responsibility in this world is to accept the atonement for yourself. And accepting the atonement for yourself is recognizing that I never left home. My brother and I are one, the same, equal. There's no differential. There's no differences. There's no separation. And only in the belief in separation are you seeing a world that kind of looks like, my God, I have to save myself. I'm afraid. And if you live in fear, you must be believing in separation, that somehow you're separate from the love of God. You're on your own, and you gotta fend for yourself. You gotta defend yourself, because if you don't defend yourself, you're gonna be attacked. How do I know I'm gonna be attacked? Because I'm attacking others. You know, whenever I judge others, I know that I'm going to be judged. And if I'm going to be judged, I want to protect myself. And so the ego thought system, that is the thought system of fear, says, don't worry, I will make sure that you're not hurt much. We'll put you behind this wall, this shield, this armor, weighs you down, and you just got to listen to the thoughts of what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong. And because if you do that, your mind is split. Your mind becomes bipolar. And in a bipolar mind, you can never remember the truth of oneness, because oneness is not bipolar. Oneness is all created the same, equal, one. I know that oneness is not an easy idea for those who are born into the so-called prison of a body, where my body's over here and your body's over there. That's two bodies. And what do you mean by oneness? Well, oneness has nothing to do with bodies. Oneness has to do with the one mind, the open mind, the unlimited mind, the masterpiece that God creates and puts into his frame. And I'm going to take an opportunity here. Lynn posted in the room earlier, to accept God's frame instead of yours, and you will see the masterpiece. Look at its loveliness and understand the mind that thought it, not in flesh and bones and bodies, but in a frame as lovely as itself. Its holiness lights up the sinlessness, the frame of darkness hides, and it casts a veil of light across the picture's face. So you're not looking at the Savior from the dark and trying to say, well, okay, let me see this differently. You are already in the mind of God, and your brother is just a reminder that he is the light. Who was Jesus but a man who saw the face of light, the face of Christ, the face of holiness, and all that he met, and he remembered the love of God, because God creates all the same. And goes on to say, think not that this face was ever darkened because you saw it in a frame of death. You saw it as a body. Yeah, and as a frame of a body, my brother could be committing all kinds of things, like, lying, being a brute, being deceitful, taking advantage of people, putting himself first. But that's his behavior, and the behavior belongs to the ego. That's not who my brother is, and that's not who I am. I am as love created. I'm not as the ego made me out to be. So you're either accepting the atonement, which is recognizing that I am still and always, and my brother is still and always as love created, or I am still stuck in the prison in this dark dungeon, serving a lifetime in solitary confinement, thinking that one day, I'll end all this and I'll be in the sweet by and by, whatever that means, thinking that one day I'll get out of this prison. No, the Son of God is not in prison. The Son of God is home with his Father. He never left. And with that, I'm going to turn this mic on back on over to you, Myrna.
I love the fact that I love your sharing. You brought across love. You brought that across, the field of love. I like that. It made me want to talk about love. I turned to lesson 50. I am sustained by the love of God. The course stresses throughout how much we are loved. We know that. I mean, I've come to understand the love that God feels. When that happens, when I feel God's love enter me, it's such a wonderful expression. It's an expression of caring that literally, I know I'm feeling God's love when I start to illuminate inside. It's something that I don't even want to overlook, because I used to, that feeling could come and go. But when I get that feeling, I hold on to it because I recognize exactly what it is. It's love. It's God. When I will speak to God in a certain way, whether I say, ask for help, ask for his guidance, and I feel that illumination, I know that God is giving me the answer. God is within. God is God is the entity with who I am, in who I am. It just, there's no division, there's no dividing. It just, I feel a certain oneness. I am sustained by the love of God. And I turn to lesson 50 in the very first paragraph. Here is the answer to every problem that will confront you today, tomorrow, and throughout time. In this world, you believe you are sustained by everything but God. Well, that's what we learned. That's what we have to learn, that we're not sustained by everything but God. We are sustained only by God. And that is where the faith comes in. I'd like to tell a quick story, and this comes to mind. I had a car accident a few months back, and a woman pulled out of a gas station. I was driving along. She pulled out, and I swerved around her, and my bumper caught hers in such a way that her car was demolished. I mean, I guess the bumper, the way my bumper caught hers, created a catastrophe in her car. It looked like it was demolished. In fact, I didn't even want to get out of the car, look at my car, thinking, oh my God, I'm looking out the window and seeing what her car looked like. And I got out, and all I could see were 2 or 3 scratches on my car. I mean, that was you couldn't even see them. I just couldn't believe the dynamics here. Anyway, the next thing I know, and we called the police, and it was a police report. Okay, gave it to the insurance company. A few days later, I find that she's suing me. And the insurance company is sending me forms now that I have to list all my assets. List all your assets. The woman, the person from the insurance company first called me, and I said, I'm not going to list my assets. And oh, you have to, she said. You have to, that's it. You're going to create more problems for yourself unless you do. You have to comply. Anyway, here I am. I'm a little sort of perplexed. I'm walking along, and my neighbor drives by. She just happens to drive by. We wave. She stops. We exchange a few words always when that happens. She said, you look a little, perplexed or something going on. I said, yeah. I explained to her what had just happened. I just spoke to the insurance company. I'm being sued. They want me to list my assets. So she said, let the lawyers handle it. I said, I don't have a lawyer. She said, well, Jack, her husband has a lawyer, and he had a problem similar, and let the lawyers handle it. Anyway, okay, gives me the number of this lawyer. I have to tell you, the nicest, sweetest guy in the world. I mean, he is wonderful. And he said, okay, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. He gets the police report. The police report indicated that it wasn't my fault. He calls me up the next day. I took care of it. Don't worry about a thing. Don't even pay me. I'm not even going to charge you. This was during the Jewish holidays. He says, I want to do a mitzvah. I want to just give you this. I'm not going to charge you. I was never charged. I had no damages on my car. I guess I bring this up because there was faith. There is faith because every single time when I get into a car, every time I drive, and I've been driving for a long time, I always ask Jesus to sit next to me. I always ask, it's like, Jesus, will you help me drive? And when that happened, I said to Jesus, what happened? How could we have this accident? And he said, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault either. It was her fault. We were blaming her. I really have to bring that to light because that was another miracle. That really was. You know, if we just give it up, give it away, not worry, not take it into our own hands, not lose sleep over things that are going to be taken care of that we have no control over. And I regarded that as an expression of love. It really was because, you know, I felt in that way I was protected. We're always protected. Things, as Regis said before, things always work out. They do, especially when you're sustained by the love of God. I love that lesson. So anyway, I turn it over to you, Dove.
Yeah, that's a great story. Thank you so much, Mona, for sharing it. And a lot of things come up in my mind as you share it. The most obvious is lesson 193. All things are lessons God would have me learn. So I'm going through this in order to, as you said, to have the faith and trust that everything that I'm perfectly cared for. And up comes this very sweet lawyer who wants to do a mitzvah for the high holy days and says that there's nothing to worry about. You are perfectly cared for. And to actually have that experience that Jesus is your co-pilot, and as Regis says, hey, Jesus, take the wheel already. He said, I got the wheel. All you have to do is smile and not take anything too seriously. Now, when you use the word, it's not your, Jesus says it's not your fault. That reminds me of something I just heard from Ken Wapnick, which I want to share with people who are Ken Wapnick fans here. He said, you know, he was talking about the I Ching, which is something I used to practice many moons ago before I ever went to S. I had already gone to S. I practiced the I Ching, which, if you're familiar with it, you use 3 coins, and it tells you about you, the way the coins are falling, you know, and it was started thousands of years ago in China, and as Ken Wapnick says, the I Ching and A Course in Miracles are the only 2 philosophies or doctrines in the world that uses the expression "no fault," no fault. He says, you know, if you could let go of blame, you would not have to do the rest of the Course in Miracles, because the Course in Miracles is just telling you that no one is to blame, but the ego thought system always sees somebody out there, and you go to your lawyer, and then they sue you, and someone has to pay, and you know, and that's the way the world is. It's a world of attack, defend, and it all comes from blame, shame, and guilt are the 3 pins of the or the 3 legs of the ego's 3-legged stool that it sits on, presiding as the warden of the prison of your solitary confinement. And as long as you think that someone out there is to blame, you really do need A Course in Miracles, because if you practice forgiveness, which is really what the miracle is, I see that I'm doing this to myself. I'm not going to blame myself. It was a lesson that I came here to learn. All things are lessons God would have me learn. Now, it's obviously that I come to learn this lesson because maybe I didn't learn the lesson the last time I was here. As he says in chapter 31, section 8, choose once again. Where you once made a faulty choice, and you still thought that someone else was to blame, come back and find out that there's no one out there to blame, and that's the idea that you are perfectly cared for. That when you go to the Holy Spirit smiles and laughs because you know there's nothing going on. But the mind that is clouded and weighed down by blame, shame, and guilt can't see in the dark, can't see in the dark. They're looking at shadows, very much like that story from Plato, where these people are in a cave and they're facing the wall and they see all these shadows and they think it's real, but it's really coming from the light that's outside, but at their back. And when they turn around and look at the light, where are those shadows? Those shadows are gone. So this is a course that says, turn to the light. Even though your brother may be one of those saviors from the dark, don't listen to the words and the thoughts that you judge he's saying to you. Ask to see him differently. That's exactly lesson 28, right, Regis? Above all else. I love that lesson. Above all else, I am determined to see this differently. Yeah, above all else. And I see Karen just posted something, blame, shame, and guilt is a three-legged stool you sit on when you believe your upset is outside of you. Oh, you're paraphrasing me. Karen did write something earlier, which I want to say. When I mentioned that lesson 23, as Ken says, is one of the most important lessons. And I said, well, attack is really another word for hate. And she writes, all attack is self-attack. So if I don't love myself, if I think lowly of myself, if I think I'm not good enough, if I feel uncertain, if I feel fearful, if I feel helpless, all those are an attack on the masterpiece that God created in the frame of eternity. I'm living here in doomsday time prison, and I'm serving a life sentence in solitary confinement. She goes on to say, it stems for the decision not to be what you are, not to be what you are. This is the decision to be separate. Yeah, so once you decide to be what you are not, which means I think I'm a body. No, God doesn't create bodies. God doesn't create junk. He doesn't create anything that dies. What God creates is eternal. So can I love my eternal self? Last night before I went to bed, I started practicing what I tell other people to do. Love yourself. You must love yourself. You can't love anyone if you don't love yourself. How can you love anybody if you're coming from a dark savior place? Like, well, I'm not there yet, but I'll be there. Always putting something into the future. If you're putting anything into the future, you're living in the ego's thought system. No, the only place you can be happy and know yourself, know thyself, is now, in the holy instant of now. And that's where you and your brother live as one in the nowness, not in time, not in the past, where there's so many stories that, oh my God, you know what he did to me, and not in the future. Well, one day we'll be okay, but I'm not there yet. No, you can only be with God. Into his presence would I enter now. One of the holiest lessons in the course, lesson 157. And with this, I'll turn it back over to you, Myrna.
Yeah, I like what you said. You have to love yourself. That is really the hardest thing to do, isn't it? When you think about it. I always found that I was much more forgiving of other people than I was of myself. I would beat myself up because I couldn't forgive myself, whatever I thought, whatever thoughts were coming to me. Interesting. So, you have to reverse position completely when you recognize that you need to really love yourself. And that takes practice too. You have to see the beauty within yourself. You have to, so many of our thoughts that come up are attack thoughts where we attack ourselves, things that we did in the past that we're not proud of, or we're condemning ourselves for, haven't forgiven ourselves for. And if we can get past that and learn, and Jesus certainly understands that through the Course in Miracles, because the Course is dedicated in teaching us that we are forgiven, that the case against us is closed. That's it. There's nothing that we have to worry about. Love is eternal, and we're loved eternally. And those are the things that I think are so important to remember. So now, when we have an attack thought, we're attacking ourselves. When we have an attack thought, we are attacking ourselves. And how can that produce love? That only produces hatred for ourselves. So now, and that sort of created a different path for me when I realized that I was attacking myself too much. I really wasn't loving myself. I did plenty of good things in this world, plenty of things that I can, if I really concentrate on. But those are the things that I would forget. I would forget that. I think we learned from early childhood, maybe today it's different. Maybe parents are more aware of how to raise their children. But we were taught that we would just, at least where I came from, the teachers in school taught us that we were really nothing. I remember a teacher, a very, very cruel teacher. In the 4th grade, there was a young boy. He used to come to school in the same shirt every day, and she would torment him. She would torment this kid, and then she told the class to beat him up outside of school. That's what she told the class to do. And I remember walking by the courtyard and seeing the whole class surrounding this kid and jeering, and with that, a little old lady walks by. I remember that. I'll never forget this. And a little old lady comes back. Looking back at that time, that must have been Jesus coming by. And she said, "Children, what are you doing?" And one of the kids says, "He comes to school with the same shirt every day." And the little old lady said, "Maybe he can't afford another shirt. Maybe that he's clean, isn't he? Maybe he just can't afford it." So then somebody told her what the teacher had said. But she calmed the group just the way Jesus did. When the crowd attacked the so-called prostitute, whatever it was that people were attacking her for. It was the same thing. The crowd just dispersed. She made us see the significance and the crime, really, in it all. Suddenly we all became aware of that. I'll never forget that. And so we grow up with that. We grow up believing that we are really nothing. Regis said something about acceptance. I remember when I was a kid, I remember I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I was getting on a school bus, not a school bus, I'm sorry. I was going with a neighbor and her daughter somewhere on a bus. She was taking us on a bus. And my grandmother said, "Here's 10 cents for the bus. Do not let her pay." Okay, here I'm 8, 9 years old, and she tried to pay, and I argued with her. She tried to pay, and I argued with her, and she was so insulted that how could you do this? What's the matter with you? Why don't you let me pay? Anyway, this thing came home to roost, because then it came back to my mother, my grandmother. Those are the ones. My grandma's the ones that gave me that instruction. Anyway, I think to this day I carry that with me. It's very hard for me to accept things, to accept something from somebody. I always go, no, no, no. And yet I'm the first to really want to give, want to help. And that stems from the old days. So these are, lies about ourselves that we carry through, that we don't really, we have to separate. That's all ego. Separating the ego from the truth takes a lot of willingness, a lot of practice. Anyway, so Regis's talk brought that memory back to me too. That yeah, we should be able to accept somebody's love. Somebody offers us something, and I can think of many times in my life when I've refused somebody's offer. Why? I just maybe thinking I'm not deserving enough. Maybe thinking that I don't want to put them out, and that I'm hurting them in some way by accepting what they're giving me. So that's a whole reversal of thought. We have to just reverse our thinking. And all things God would have me learn, as you said earlier, all things are lessons God would have me learn. Everything is a lesson that we learn from, good, bad, and different. We learn from it. We do. When we do something good, we learn from it. Do something bad, well, there is no good or bad, as Shakespeare said, only our thinking makes it so. Maybe that's why we're so forgiven. We think we do bad things, but there is no bad, really. It's just the thoughts behind it, behind the idea. So I turn it back to you, Doug.
Yeah, that's perfect. There is no good or bad, but thinking about it makes it so. Shakespeare. And that's exactly what I just put up in the chat, literally, from text chapter 2, section 6. It says, you are much too tolerant of your mind wandering. And then it says, you're passively condoning your mind's miscreations. So when I'm in the mind of the ego thought system that sees good and bad, right and wrong, I want to be the good. I certainly don't want to be the bad. So I must see the bad outside of me, and I just miscreate and make things up. So if somebody says, like the teacher says, I want you to go outside the school and beat this kid up, I mean, my mind is a slave to the ego's thought system. And, it's all about you have taught yourself very poorly. Choose once again by choosing a teacher of God. And the teacher of God that God has given to us is the Holy Spirit. Now, if you hear a voice in your head, I don't care if it's a teacher's voice or you hear it from the President of the United States, it doesn't really matter, to attack somebody, you know that you're living in darkness. There's no light in attack. Attack is another word for a hatred. I mean, the way that we got here is we believe in a world that isn't really existing in truth. It's a dreamscape. Into this world crept a tiny mad idea, and we remember not to laugh. We took it seriously, and when we take our thoughts very seriously. If you look at your thoughts, and any of them are about attacking or disliking or separating or blaming or shaming or guilting, you can immediately recognize that you're listening to a madman. And if you keep listening to him, you might as well put yourself among the schizophrenic, the paranoid, listening to something that will make you afraid, the schizophrenic, listening to a voice that doesn't really exist because you are dreaming, and you think the dream is real. The only way to wake up from this dream is to start seeing your thoughts as silly. They're not serious dreams, they are silly dreams. Now, the silliness comes from the idea that no one ever tells you about, but he starts by telling it in chapter 21 in the introduction. Projection makes perception. What does that mean? I'm always speaking about myself. That's why it's silly. If I don't like this kid out there and someone tells me to beat him up, who am I beating up? I'm beating myself up. Now, nobody would beat themselves up if they knew that that's all that's going on. Nobody would kill anybody unless if they realized that they were killing themselves. Nobody would blame or shame or guilt anybody if they knew that they were doing that to themselves. Projection makes perception. The world you see is nothing more than an outside picture of an inner condition. Yes, as Karen says, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just silly. Over to you, Myrna.
Yeah, I see that Karen put something, miracles. Is that a book? Miracles are expressions. I looked up at that. It's posted, it's on the frame of the Zoom, the Zoom picture here. I just wondered what that was. Miracles or expressions. What is that, Karen? You're muted.
That's a quote from the course. It's just something I got offline,
Oh, I thought
online.
it was a book or something. Yeah. What did it say? Miracles are expressions? Is that what it says?
Expressions of love. Miracles are expressions of love.
Miracles,
Yeah.
yes. Right.
I just want to comment really quickly, Myrna. I love what you shared about, I believe, and I know it's a belief and that I've been undoing it, that most of our issues come from childhood. And when I went to school, I went to college, and I took child psychology. And the teacher was teaching about, it was child psychology 101. And one of the first things I remember reading was that the first 6 years of a child's life are the most important. So the first 6 years are when we learn about our abandonment issues stem from that, our feelings of insecurity, our self-esteem, all those things that we learn from our friends in school, but from our parents, So we learn to forgive, we learn to undo all those thoughts but it takes time. It's a process, and I think that's a big thing that you said. I think it's really, really true. I mean, my father was a very successful man, but he couldn't get over the fact that when he became successful, his father, the first person he went to was his father to show him the first truck he bought for his business. And his father looked at him and said, well, who do you think you are? Like, what are you, a big shot now? Like totally put him down. And he did that his whole life. So in the back of my dad's mind, he always had that thought. He never really got past it. And it really destroyed him. He became an alcoholic and the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to go into the story, but I'm just saying, if we believe those lies from childhood and they stay with us, it's terrible. It's terrible. So I can say from what you shared, I have really healed a lot of that from my childhood, and I'm very grateful for that. So I think it's really important to look at that, to look at those things.
That's great, Karen. That's great. I think too that I've also healed a lot. My father passed away when I was 3 years old. He died. It was an accident, actually. Something heavy fell on his foot and it caused a blood clot, and it traveled to his heart, and they didn't have blood thinners in those days, and he died within 2 weeks of the accident. And it was terrible trauma. I was 3 years old, and I remember everybody coming to our house, and everybody was crying. I didn't know why everybody was crying. I remember that memory. Everybody was crying. Nobody was looking at me. Everybody was just crying. People coming through the door, and everybody was crying. And that night, I went to sleep, and I was still in a crib, actually. And in the middle of the night, I woke up. And I knew that it must have had something to do with my father, because everybody was calling his name. And that night, I climbed out of my crib. I went into my parents' bedroom, and I saw two people in the bed. And I started to jump up and down, and I thought my father came back. I said, Mommy, wake up. Daddy's home. Daddy's home. And as it turned out, my sister was sleeping in my mother's bed with her. I saw two people in the bed. But I still remember the feeling then. Even then, they think their children don't feel. I knew that my father was never coming back. I knew that he had died. Because I remember so vividly that feeling, and I had some tough things to deal with. And then I was sent to nursery school. Listen to this story. And I remember I hated it. I hated it. I didn't like the, I was there from early in the morning to at night. I used to come home when it was dark. The school bus would drop me off. I'm 4 years old, in front of my apartment building. I scooted up the steps. Nobody was there to meet me at the bus. And anyway, one night the bus was dropping me off, and they were dropping me off to a different building. It wasn't my building. They made a mistake. And it was dark. I was 4 years old, and I was afraid to say anything. I was afraid, and I was about to get off the bus. But at 4 years old, I remember thinking, I know how to get home from here. I know how, and believe me, I would have had to cross several streets to get home. I mean, because my aunt lived on that block, but it was not that close. And and there was a kid on the bus. I'll never forget his name. His name was Justin. And he started to cry. She doesn't live here. She doesn't live here. That's not where she lives. And then he goes, shut up, Justin. Sit down, Justin. Shut up, Justin. And I was about to get off the bus when they pulled me back up, on the bus and drove me to my rightful place. But I was 4 years old. It was dark out. I could have been kidnapped. I mean, I was going to cross the street myself. So we lived, like you say, the first few years of our lives are so important. But something, I just look back, and now, of course, we learn from those experiences and realizing they're not real, and we are who we are today. I just want to tell you one quick story too. Regis was talking about foster care. My daughter is a teacher of foster children. She works for an organization called Best Foot Forward, and this is teaches children who are in the foster care system. That's what they do. They make sure they stay in school, they tutor them, they give them make sure that they understand math, reading, whatnot. So she has this little 8-year-old boy. She's walking down the hall with him, and he said hello to a little girl. And so my daughter said, who is that? So the kid says, that's my ex. No, that's my ex.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It's great having you, Karen. Love
Thank
sharing
you.
with you.
Thank you. Love you guys. I love the way you guys share. Thank you.
Thank you. I give it to you, Doug.
Thank you so much, Karen, for joining in and Myrna, those wonderful stories. Kind of, it's like I just posted what Ken says. You can't forgive what didn't happen until you look at what did happen, and you've come a long way, baby, from the Bronx to Boca, and as you said, I just knew the way home. I just knew the way home. It's like you have a blessed script. Well, we all have a blessed script, but you have certainly lived it out very, very beautifully. So you should take a look that you are perfectly cared for, like we are all perfectly cared for, truly. Yeah. So Ken says, I also posted it. He says, you can't forgive what didn't happen to you. Oh, that's the last thing. He says, the only thing that is lost, when you lose the ego is the need to be a victim. So as long as you're listening to the voice that tells you what to do and what not to do, you can be sure that the ego is speaking to you, and you're going to wind up being a victim. But you say, I don't want to be a victim anymore. I don't want it to blame others. I don't want to blame myself. I want the truth. I want the peace of God above all else. I want the peace of God. And as he says, to say these things is nothing. I want the peace. No, but to mean it, that you really do want the peace of God, it takes the strength and the power and the glory. And you find that basically in lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust, that you're trusting that there is that the world that you see is not the world that God created. For sure, God doesn't create anything that comes and goes, a world of time. What God creates is eternal. So when we turn our lives over, when we turn my mind over to the eternal, I can rest in peace now. I don't have to wait until someone says, well, let him rest in peace. No, rest in peace is for the living, as Jesus says in the Course of Miracles. It's not for the dead. The living rest in peace. It's like I was sharing yesterday, my favorite go-to lesson is lesson 109. I rest in God. It says, if you rest in God, this will overcome all the clashing dreams of this world. Yeah, the world is a world of clashing dreams. They want this and somebody else wants that. And which way do I go? I'm always like, which way should I go? I need do nothing. I rest in God. I need do nothing. I rest in God. It's already done. You never left home. This is a dream that you wake up from. So when you say, I need do nothing, you're choosing to wake up from a dream of do. Now, who you are, your being, is that I am the Holy Son of God. I am whole, perfect, complete, and I need do nothing to be the abundance of the love of God. I am the peace of God. I am the love of God. And that's pretty much it. I am not a victim of the world. I invented this world. Lesson 31 and 32. Over to you for maybe if you want to take the last couple of words. That's up to you.
Yeah, what you're saying, it's all a matter, we're not a victim of the world we see. It's all undoing our ego thoughts, undoing the feelings of that take us away from the love of God, undoing, and that's what it's really a matter of. That's what the Course is. It's not a religious teaching, the Course in Miracles. It's a book of psychology, really, that God is teaching us. Jesus is teaching us through psychology that we have to, as you said before, we allow ourselves too much mind wandering. And the Course tells us right on that that's something to watch, and how true that is, isn't it? Our mind is constantly wandering, and that's the vicious cycle that we're kept in. So to break out of that, it does take perseverance, it takes willingness, and again, to feel the love that we're feeling from God certainly helps a lot, because that love is everything. And that's when we learn to extend it, when we feel it, learning to extend it. We're feeling it. If God loves me so much, how could I not love my brothers? I say to myself sometimes, if God has forgiven me for everything, how can I not forgive? How can I not forgive? How can I not forgive? Who am I not to forgive if God has forgiven me? And those are the words and the thoughts that I feed myself, and that the reality that we create is the one that we really want. And once we're onto it, and once we're on the path to truth, you really can't fall off of it. You can't fall. You think you can, but I think you just get back on again, and just understand that it's nothing is gonna happen to our liking all the time. Nothing. Okay, things are going to change. Right now, I'm feeling great. Everything's going my way. Tomorrow, do I really believe that it's going to be like that the rest of my life? No. There will be a couple of little intrusions on that piece. That's okay. Get past it. Feel the love of God. Recognize that it's a dream. And so even if we can prepare ourselves for what we know is inevitable, it helps, it really does. So I think the time is up now.
Yeah, I'll take the last couple.
Oh.
I just want to say, if you saw me eating something, I found this new thing which I want to share.
What is it?
At Trader Joe's, they have this new thing, instant oatmeal, but it has apples and cinnamon in it. And I love apples and cinnamon, and the instant oatmeal is so good for you. So that's almost become my new favorite whenever I get a little hungry. And oatmeal is good for your heart. And now we're in the new age of the heart. And the age of the heart is the love that we give to ourselves, the love that we give to ourselves. And
I gotta find that. Is that an instant cereal? Because I love oatmeal, and I'm always looking for good oatmeals. I do like oatmeal.
Near you, just Trader Joe's, and it says
It's in a box.
apples and cinnamon. And
Does it come in a package, or is it frozen? How does it?
No. It's a power. It's not frozen. I don't.
Not frozen. Oatmeal can't be frozen, but I imagine it comes in a box, right? That's how oatmeal comes.
They give you 10 packets. You can have 10 different meals. It's great.
Wow. And you mix it with water. That's it.
Get water. I also use a little half and half.
Oh, I love half and half. I was going to say that. I put half and half in. Yes. Yeah. How can we live without half?
You guys are awesome. Oh man, thank you so much, Dove and Myrna. And we get that Quaker oatmeal. It has apples and cinnamon, but I like the maple and brown sugar the best.
I eat baby oatmeal too. I love it. It's smooth. It's creamy. I have it with applesauce. It's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oatmeal is very good for you. And if you're not feeling well, eat some oatmeal. It actually will make you feel better.
It's
Um,
also good Jewish penicillin, they say. Chicken soup, right,
chicken
Deb?
soup. Yep.
Right.
Very much so. And there are scientific things
Yeah.
that